probably had been a nurse maybe about 10 years or so. My partner, my wife, had cancer, and she was dying. We had two beautiful little boys, and as things were progressing and she was failing all treatment, I just cared for her at home. My best friend also had a terminal disease, and I moved him into the house too. So I would work 3 12-hour shifts, and I had someone come in and watch them, and I would go to work. But then on my days off, 4 days a week, I took care of my friend, my spouse, and then we had a 7 and 9 year old boys. And my friend died, and and then the boy's mother died. She had cancer, and it was just me then as a single dad with two young boys and working, and we got through it. Well, one day I was in the house. The boys were in the front yard. Boys were in the front yard playing, and and I heard this horrible noise, and and crashing and screaming, and what the heck is that? So I go out in the front yard, let's see what's going on. There's a car in the yard, and the neighbors are coming over and screaming and yelling, and ended up there was red everywhere. I'm thinking, what's that? I'm a nurse. I just withdrew totally from what happened in that situation. And I just stood there, what's going on? Why is there a yard in the yard? Why is there a car in the yard? And the neighbors are doing something and trying to pull something out from underneath the car. And then there was this inebriated man just walking around like, what happened? And ended up the red that I saw was the blood of my sons. A drunk had lost control of the car and just drove right through our own front yard. Kids were playing in their own front yard, and he killed them, ran them right over. And I froze. I couldn't do anything. I was absolutely useless. And what wonderful neighbors I had. And yeah, they're trying to pull the bodies out, and they were stuck under the wheels, and they called for help, and people came and they took over completely. I just stood there and just cried, and they were dead. So their mother died 3 months prior, and then they died, and I don't know. The in-laws came in and did all the funeral arrangements. I just was absolutely useless, and I couldn't go back to work. And I told my boss, and she said, take as much time as you can. And um, um, I never went to the funeral. I couldn't go. I couldn't. I've never been to their grave. This has been 35 years. This was 1989, and I just stayed in the house. I couldn't do. I was absolutely useless. And with all the experiences I had had up to that time with spirit, you would think I would still, I would understand. Oh, they've gone on and everything's fine. But it was, a 7 and 9 year old, and screaming and laughing and everything throughout the day, and then all at once the house was so silent. It was like screaming in silence. And it was just me. Everyone died. My friend, the mother, the kids. And I'm there alone. So I had wonderful friends, and they came over and just let me vegetate and brought food and took care of me. And I ended up sitting in the house for a solid year. I didn't go to work. I would look out the window every now and then and see cars drive by and people walking their dogs, and I would think, how are you guys having a life when my world stopped. There's absolutely no life left in my life. How are you guys doing this? So I had paint, gallons and gallons of paint. So I painted over the windows. I completely painted over. I had these great big picture windows and completely painted out the whole world. It was just total darkness. And I sat in total darkness for a year. And my friends, my wonderful friends, and they never tried to get me to change or straighten up or whatever. They would just, come over and bring food, and I'd order pizza, and had a TV set. We got 3 channels, and I watched that, and I just sat in the house. I just froze. And then one day, it was early in the morning, about 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm sitting again in total darkness and watching TV. And up in the corner of the room, it was like sparkles. It was like a sparkle. I don't know. We have them in America. You light them, and they're like silver little lights. And there was like these little sparkles, like diamonds. And they started appearing. There'd be a couple, and then a ton, and then loads of them. So maybe it was 4 feet wide, 1 feet tall. It was oblong shape, glittering, sparkling white diamonds, lights. And I thought, oh my God, it's an electrical fire. Now what am I going to do? And I'm just staring at it, thinking, what, I can't leave the house. What, I guess I'll call the police or something, fire department or whatever. And then out of that bar of sparkles and light came 2 voices, and they were young executive men, maybe 27, 28 years old. They both had distinct voices, but very young, and they were very, very stern with me and started telling me off. And they said, listen, we've had enough of you. We've got so much work to do, so much important work. We have so many people relying on us, so much important endeavors that has been going on for a long time, and people are relying on us to get our jobs done, but we can't because of you, because you've been holding us back, because of you. It's all about you. You're holding us back. We can't move forward. We can't do our job, and it's got to stop right now. And then when one would stop, the other voice would take over, and it says, yes, the only nice thing that was ever said was, we appreciate what you did for us. And instinctively, I knew it was my 2 boys. My 2 boys died at ages 7 and 9, but now a year later, they sounded like very intelligent, well-educated young executives. And they just kept telling me off. You got to stop this. We're not going to put up with this one more minute. It's stopping now. You can't keep holding on to us. We got to go, and this is it. This is your only warning. This is the only time we're going to tell you, let go. Let go now. And they were just told me off. It was like a bad police officer, pulling you over and letting you have it. And I'm thinking, like, yes, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was, doing anything bad. I miss you so much. I can't tell you how bad I hurt that you're no longer here. And they didn't respond. It wasn't like, oh, Daddy, we miss you, we love you. They just told me off, one after the other. It just went on and on. Maybe 3 or 4 minutes. It seemed like a much longer because, I'm like, yes, sir, I'm sorry. Yes, I'll stop. Yes, I'll let you go. And then the sparkling got smaller and smaller and smaller. And tiny and tiny and tiny. And then finally it was just a couple sparks. And then I'm back in the darkness again. And it was my boys. My boys came back and told me off. I didn't realize I was mourning them so much. And I didn't realize that mourning them not only was holding me back and holding me in total darkness inside, I was evidently holding them in darkness too. I was holding them back from the life and the spiritual experiences that they're supposed to be having at this time. Missing someone's healthy, that's okay. But mourning someone is lethal. It's lethal for me, and it was lethal for my boys. I had no idea that my attachment not only limited my experience, but was limiting their experiences too. And I remember one night in a dream, it kind of came to me that I would turn myself into a living headstone for my two sons. When I buried them, I buried me too. And after this experience, I turned the headstone into stepping stones, and I was able to move on. That day, because of this, my attitude changed 160 degrees. And I called up my old job, and my boss had moved off, but everybody knew me. And I said, you know what, I need to come back to work. And they said, well, come on in, put in an application. So I had to call somebody up to come jump my car because they hadn't started my car in a year. And, I got cleaned up and did my hair and shaved and got in the car and drove to work and put in an application. And they hired me right then and there. I started the next day after staying in the house for a solid year in total darkness. It really hurts your eyes going out in the light after that. I started work the next day, started back in orientation. It was that quick and that sudden of a healing that I got when my boys touched in with me. And what a glorious thing that was. When they freed me, they freed themselves. When I freed me, I freed them. We freed each other. And so I'm back home, and I'm going to work, and soon I'm back into hospice because that was going to be my dedication after this. I was a very technical nurse prior to that. Now I wanted to work with the dying people, and I went to work with in the AIDS facility. But I had to deal with all this paint on the window, and I had these little tiny razor blades. And my friends came over and said, we'll help scrape it off. I said, no, this is something I need to do. And so it took months, little bit, scraping off all these windows just full of paint. And the more I scraped off, the more the light came in. And I thought I could turn my back on the light. I thought I could paint it out. I thought I could paint the world and the universe and God and everything that is out. But all I did was just shut my eyes. And the more I scraped the paint off and the more sun would be coming through, the light's always there. It's always there. It never turns off. It never turns away from you. You can shut your eyes. You can try to paint over it. You can turn your back against it. You can spray paint it. You can pull curtains. You can say, no, 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 it doesn't exist. It's there. It's there whether you accept it or not. And it's there for you. It's just waiting for you to, again, remove those blocks that separate you from it. And prior to this, I think I had my blocks pretty well removed because I had so many wonderful experiences. I tumbled on this one. Mourning is lethal. And again, missing is healthy. Mourning is lethal. And I had to relearn that lesson to never turn away from the light again, no matter what else. It's the most important thing that can happen to you in your life and in your next life, wherever it is you are. And I scraped and scraped and scraped and finally opened up all the windows. And I have never, ever separated myself from the light again. And what a wonderful healing that was. What a wonderful, and I'm so blessed that I got to see my boys. I know they're fine. They're doing something. I've never seen them again. I never tried to call them back. I've learned after that. I don't want to get told off like that again. I know they're happy and they're doing stuff and they're having an adventure and they've got a purpose. That's you don't just float around playing harps up there. There's progress and growing and unfoldment constant. And oh, what a marvelous experience that was. I am so grateful. And that's the story about my boys.
My God,
Yeah.
it was heartbreaking to hear it, and but also, the latter part of it, so beautiful. And when you talked about mourning, and that, it was not only holding you back from life, because that was, that's a own choice, so you can choose to keep yourself from living your life, but it was also holding them back. And I
Yeah.
think very often the way we think of it is, do we cry enough? Do we suffer enough when somebody passes on? Do we mourn enough? And it almost seems, I think some people also feel guilty if they don't mourn enough, but I think we sort of expect to show our love for the people in our lives by almost like not being able to move on or carry on with our lives, after they pass on, because we take it as a sign of love. They were so important and we love them so much that we're just not going to move on. And it sounds like this is what you were doing in that year, right? You were just
Right.
holding on to that love for them the best way you knew how. But
I was missing bodies. I was missing two tiny little cute, cuddly, giggly, sweet, funny, fun to tickle little boy bodies. But the real them is spirit. And that experience was over here in the physical, and they moved on. But there's still such a connection that we had that, and I think it's not just with your loved ones, I think it's with everybody in the whole universe. And that connection is real. And though they had moved on and matured and gone to a whole other state of consciousness, still me holding on affected them. And that really gives me something to think about. When you think bad thoughts of somebody, or good thoughts, or any kind of thoughts, the power that that has, that it goes to them, but also whoever else in the entire universe. We really need to watch what we think and feel, because those are real things. After this happened, I had another dream, and spirit kind of, it gives me funny little dreams, and I have to think about, what are you trying to show me? And I had somebody at work that I worked with, and he was very mean to people, very mean to each other, and I would just wave at him and smile. And if he was mean to me, you know, I buried my kids. You know, no one, no one can upset me after that. And in a dream, I saw him, and he was walking down a street, and he was cussing somebody out and telling him off. And then in the dream, I saw him laying in the gutter, and the person he was cussing out was standing on the sidewalk. In the dream, they were both on the sidewalk, but all at once he was in the gutter. And my spirit, the feeling I got, and I try not to intellectualize, I try to feel, because to me, spirit comes in moods and feelings and impressions. And the feeling was spirit, our soul, a we as soul, can only look one way, and that's up. We can only look up. We can only look to that divine source. It's an illusion to think you can look down. This came to me in the dream. It's an illusion to look down. You can only look up. So, in the dream, when he was cussing this person off on the sidewalk, and then all at once he's in the gutter, it hit me. When he looks down on people, he's actually just below them. He has now placed himself below them, because spirit can only look up. And whenever you look down on anybody, you have just placed yourself below them, because spirit can only look up to God. You can only look up to the universe, or whatever you want to call it. It can't look down. And from that, I've always watched every single word and thought and feeling that I've had. And if something negative comes through, I just throw it off and say, oh, I make a little joke about it and laugh it off. Somebody's mad at me, well, big deal, so what? Um, it gives us an opportunity to build a deeper, better relationship down the road. See people as high as you possibly can in spirit, as their true form, as little sparks of God, like the little twinkly things that I saw when my boys were on this thing. I don't know what it was. Was that their soul? I don't know. But whenever you see anybody or everybody as high as possible, you're just like that much below them. You're up there too. And if you see people down as, low and undeserving or whatever, you're just that much below them. You've placed yourself. It's your choice. There's so many things you can't choose in life, but you can choose where you place your attention. You can choose the attitude that you're going to have, how you're going to react to a situation, and you can choose when, where, and how you change where you put your attention. You can put it on something higher or something lower, but actually you can't put it on lower because you're just below it. No matter everything in the universe is between you and God. That's the connection we have. And that's just been life-changing. What a simple little thing that is. I mean, it's profound, but it's also very, very simple. I think the universe keeps things incredibly simple. You can say the truth of the universe probably in just a couple sentences, not books and books and books and all these things that people write, trying to make a living or whatever. I think the universe just keeps it very simple. Love each other, look up, hold to the hand of your friend. When someone stumbles, grab their hand and lift them up. What simple little things. That's all there is. And eventually, when this is over, we move on to something bigger and greater. And that's what I've gotten out of life. And all my wonderful, incredible experiences. And I thank the universe for every single one of them, including the loss of my boys. I couldn't be there to protect them. I couldn't hold them or hold their hands when they took their last breath. But as 17 years as a hospice nurse and 20 years as an emergency room nurse, and then I spent 5 years as a burn nurse, and I could take care of those people. I could hold their hands when they took their last breath, or their mothers or fathers or their children or whatever. I was blessed with the opportunity to be able to support people, spirit moving on to the next level, and then how it affected all their loved ones that were around them. It's been an absolute blessing. I am so glad I became a nurse. But anybody else in any other field, you can do the same thing too, because everybody's stumbling or not stumbling and going through life, and you can just choose at any moment to see people as soul in the highest level, the purest form that they actually are, not as their bodies, but see them as soul. And you're just like a slice of paper below them. This is my interpretation. This is me. I try not to interpret much, but this just feels right. This just feels like this is the way it's set up. What do you think?
I think that's so beautiful, and I cannot help but agree with you more. I think the purpose of our life is to make others feel loved and seen. And I think essentially, if we are able to do that for the people around us, that's a life well lived. I also believe that, in your line of work, I think you do those things way more than others of us do, and you do it for the kinds of people that really need somebody kind and loving by their side. And I can imagine, there's the practical thing of just giving somebody their medicine or bringing them a glass of water, which is just a task. But there's this, soul task of just listening or being there or telling them it's okay to go or holding their hand, that's not necessarily something that somebody can express in the same way.
Um, Interesting because for me it was so natural. And then other nurses just would kind of close that off. It's so much easier seeing a patient as like a leg and an arm and something completely neutral, non-human. That's how they deal with it. But then I kind of feel maybe that nurse and I were put together by the universe for to just maybe crack open crack open those doors inward just a little bit more for them and allow them to get to share, the light in the universe speaking through them too. So I think many of them that I've worked with, it's been over 40 years now as a nurse, that are able to open up to something more than they ever were before. And again, I open myself to Spirit to use me anywhere, any place that you need to do your work. And I think that's the people that are brought into our area. Um, you can stand in line to get a soda at the store, and there's people all around you. And though you don't necessarily speak to them or interact with them, I can kind of shut my eyes and see them as that beautiful light of spirit and just kind of just send love to them and say, you got this. You can do this. You're having a great experience. We're all soul. We're all on this planet now and off to somewhere later on. Let's be buddies. Let's be friends. I love you. Love you. What a wonderful thing to say. I love you.
That's so, so beautiful, David. Oh, amazing. And I think we
All
have so much to learn from what you shared with us today. If we're ever, in the situation that most of us will be in to care for a loved one who is going to transition soon, there's a lot that we can take from this.
right. Or it it may be one of the people watching. It may be them next. I mean, people go before you do, or you go before they do. That's it. It's one or the other. I had a stroke um, 6 months ago. It was December. This is May, and I was completely paralyzed. Um, if I didn't have my phone in my hand, I couldn't have called 911. And I just fell on the floor. I fell into the wall, knocked my teeth out. I was completely paralyzed. And it was interesting. I went to the ICU floor where I used to be a nurse, and I recognized, the floor, and it was like, oh my gosh, I've taken care of patients in this bed that I'm laying in, and I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't speak. I was curled up and totally paralyzed. And I thought, because I had such a horrible headache, I thought maybe it was a bullet. I thought maybe there was a drive-by shooting. And I had this pain. And the doctors and the nurses would come through and just treat me like a doorstop. They didn't speak to me. They didn't tell me what was going on because now it was my turn to be non-responsive. And all my patients for 4 decades, I took care of and spoke to and explained everything to them. No one did that for me. And as I got better, I wrote a big letter to everybody in the staff. But uh, I used my meditation and went inside my brain. I found that there was a clot, and I used my meditation that I meditate every day, and I've been meditating for years. And I think I healed myself along with Spirit. But what a lesson that was to be a caregiver for 40 plus years. And now once I'm put in a position to be a care receiver. And it just felt like everything in the universe was complete. It was okay. And I heard the doctors talking about putting me on hospice. And I had no idea what was going on. I could think completely, but I couldn't even bat an eye. I couldn't do anything. And I made a remarkable healing, and I'm almost completely back to normal now. But as horrible as it sounds, I feel like I had such a blessing to finally get to see the other side and feel extra gratitude that what I did for my patients and for people in general, to respect them and love them and speak to them and to tell them everything's going to be okay and I'm going to take care of you and you're loved and you're worthy and value. Even when you don't say it out loud to people, like in public, when you just feel that love that you have for your fellow soul, not the body, the soul that's eternal. The bodies fall away and the soul is eternal. And now it was my time, my turn. And that was a very valuable lesson. I made it through. I'm still in the body. I'm trying to share my stories while I'm still here. When I'm gone, I don't want any of this left, forgotten. I want to share my experiences, and I'm so grateful that you've had me on your channel, and let me get to share this with everybody. It's so funny because I've taken care of stroke patients for years. Some kind of get better over time, some don't. I mean, a lot just die. When I was a hospice nurse, we had so many stroke patients that died. And when I heard the doctors talk about putting me on hospice, I was thinking, oh my God, must really be sick. But actually, even though I was in a lot of pain and I was completely paralyzed, I was in so much peace. I felt spirit. I felt like I was cuddled and nurtured and rocked and held and kissed and loved. I, this is terrible, but I had a great time with my stroke. I really enjoyed it. And, again, I practiced meditation and I used the meditation that I practiced and I reduced my consciousness down to a tiny little speck. And this is how I started IVs on patients. I hope I'm not talking too long, am I? Okay. When I would, they called me No Miss Dave because I never missed starting an IV on somebody. And what I did in my meditations, I took this class. It was called the Silva Method, and they teach you how to reduce your consciousness down to like the size of a cell, and to be able to look inside your body at the cellular level. And I used that technique and I would put my consciousness on the tip of the needle. So when I would start the IV and you go through the skin and then you got to put the needle into the vein and then you push this catheter on, I could actually see it. And I never missed an IV. So I used that technique when I was paralyzed. I meditated and I do this countdown and do this little ritual thing that I do to go into alpha brainwave activity. And I was able to go to the cellular level in my brain and I found a clot. I was expecting to see a bullet. I totally thought I'd been shot, but I wasn't. It was a clot. And I used my meditative techniques. I made friends with the clot instead of seeing the clot as an enemy, and it's destroyed my body, and it may kill me, it's paralyzed me. Instead of doing all that, I gave it eyes and a nose and a mouth and hands. I made it like a little puppet, and I talked to it. I talked to the clot that's in my brain that's blocking the nerve functions going to my body. And I asked it as if it were a friend. I said, yeah, you're interfering in my body. I'm totally paralyzed. Can you work with me and let's resolve this? And I imagined the clot talking back, saying, "Hey, Dave, yeah, sorry about that. Let's work on this." So my meditations while I was laying in ICU, the clot and I dislodged it cell by cell, one piece by one piece, and dissolved it and moved it into the blood flow, and we just disseminated the clot down to absolutely nothing. And I was home. I was out of the hospital in 9 days. I was in ICU. I was out of the hospital in 9 days. I went home with home health. I had speech therapy for a while. They fired me after, I think after 6 weeks. I was doing so much better. I've got like a little scar there, but everything's gone. The clot's completely gone. And other than a little bit of balance issue, I'm pretty much back to normal after being in ICU and a hospice candidate myself. So instead of working in fear and reacting, I worked friendship with the clot, and we worked together, and brought everything back to normalcy. And I'm sure the doctors and all the medicines and everything that we give, and I know all those medicines, that did a lot. But I really think working with a spiritual flow and not being in panic mode, but being in love mode, and made friends with the disease rather than to see it as the enemy. And here I am. Here I am. It worked. It worked. Lift it up. Lift it up. You're just below it. See everything as high as you can because you're just below it. I'm using that again and again and again in my life, and I have now for a quarter of a century. So I share that with you.
Thank you for that. It's amazing. And you mentioned the Silva method, and I have to say it's something that I've tried to get into at one point, but then somehow like it never really stuck through with it. And now that you mention it, I was looking for a new way of meditating, or I was thinking, should I try it again? So I think you mentioned it, and now I'm going, okay, I'm going to give it another go.
They teach it, teachers that teach it on Zoom. So you can take it on Zoom. I took it, I think in 1980. So I've been practicing it for a while. It's effective. It's easy. It's systematic. And after you practice for a little bit, you put your three fingers together, and you can actually go right into alpha. And I worked in the hospital. I actually did studies on me in the sleep lab because they had the high-tech EEG machines, and they would wire me up and then have me meditate, and the doctors would study me. I could go, yeah, very deep meditation, very low brainwave activities in 2 minutes. So it works. Yeah, yeah.
Amazing. So that's a good tip for everybody. David, if people want to connect with you, are you open to that? And how can they best?
I was going to start a channel on cooking because I was raised on a farm, wanted to do, down home full cooking techniques. But I decided this stuff is much more important. So it's called Uncle Dave's Kitchen. It's on YouTube. And hopefully you'll put a link below to my channel. That would be awesome. Uncle Dave's Kitchen. And down the road, I'm going to actually like cook biscuits and gravy or something. I'll do some cooking things. I'm coming up with another hospice video that I'm doing. Absolutely one of the most amazing things that's ever happened. But then I say that about everything. Spirit totally used me to avoid a horrible catastrophe in many people's lives, and what a blessing it was. And I'm about to record that hopefully tomorrow, so it should be out soon.